Ladies and gentlemen, the 1-year anniversary of the Western Huntsman podcast.
There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman podcast.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. This is the 1-year special episode of the Western Huntsman podcast. We are celebrating our 1-year anniversary here at the show, and that is a big deal. Not a lot of podcasts make it to their 1-year mark, and so I'm super thankful to be here. And the only reason I am still here is, because you guys keep tuning in, and I appreciate that, and I'm super humbled by it. I just appreciate everybody's support. It's just been so much more fulfilling than I ever thought was possible, and just the way you guys have supported the show, it just makes my heart happy, and man, I appreciate it, guys. So welcome. This is Jim Huntsman coming at you from the Broken Time Studio here in Hayden, Idaho, where we are knocking on the door of Christmas Eve. And in fact, last year at this time, I was releasing the episode on Christmas Eve. Episode 1 was kind of a quick description of, the show in the intro, kind of the basis of the show, the foundation of the show, and all that kind of stuff. And it was really cool. It was fun. It was fun to have. And then I had Dirk Durham on, where before he moved down south, I went down to his place, and he had this cool little cabin out in the woods that we met at and had a couple of beers, and kind of it was like a Dirk Durham expose or whatever you want to call it. And I put that episode out on Christmas Eve, and I was hoping to get like 100 downloads. Or that's what it was. It was like my goal was to hit like 100 downloads. And it turns out we got close to 1,000 downloads on that thing, and that's just a huge deal. It's so tough to get these podcasts out there and market these things in a way to build an audience and grow it as a show and scale it and all these things that I try to do here. It's a difficult thing. And I've kind of got a background in marketing, and so I know that there's like this balance that I have to find with marketing the show and advertising the show without being annoying about it. I don't want to post it all over the place. I try to be as careful as possible with that. But anyways, that's kind of the story of how the show started last year, and here we are a year later. This is episode number 51. And I did miss a week in September, and so that's the only week that I missed, and that was because of hunting. So I feel like I get a pass on missing a week, but I try to get these episodes out every week, and you guys seem to like to tune in every week because it seems like every week we get more downloads. That's just such a cool thing, and it's just such a cool reward for doing these, because they really do take a lot of time and work and effort, and I had no idea what I was doing when I started a podcast. Yeah, you guys know what I mean. I didn't know. I listened to podcasts, and I'm a big fan of a lot of different podcasts, and most of them are hunting. Some of them are non-hunting related, but I drive a lot for my day job. And so I have a lot of time to just, absorb a lot of different types of podcasts, and some of them give me ideas of what to do on this show, and some of them tell me exactly what not to do on this show, and some of them you just sit back and you learn and you enjoy, and they're entertaining, and it just kind of motivates me and pumps me up to get this one out there and get this one growing. And I think the reason why it has grown so much over the years, because so this year, just to put it into perspective, and I can't remember the stat. exactly what it is. But it is the majority of podcasts that get released do not make it 12 months. They don't make it. And I could see why, because they are a lot of work. They're a lot of time. I sure as hell don't make any money on this thing. And so the only real incentive that I have for doing these is I get to talk to you guys, and you guys communicate back, whether it's through email or on social media or getting you on the show. And really that's my satisfaction. And my goal with the show is to just get hunters that are passionate about our lifestyle and our sport and our, what we do as hunters, and talk about some of the issues that we face as hunters, and talk about the nature of the hunting community in terms of what our future looks like, and there's some dire things in our future, but there's also some really positive things in our future as hunters, and that's the kind of stuff I wanted to talk about, and just get everybody kind of involved. And what's happened is people have tuned in, and they've liked the show enough. I don't know why. I don't know why, because I'm not a great podcast host, and I stumble a lot, and I mince my words a lot, and a lot of things happen, and just because I'm not some professional broadcaster, I didn't go to school for this or anything. I had no idea what I was doing. I did and I still do a little bit, but I was doing a work podcast for facilities maintenance and building management and stuff for the industry I work in. And that one was going okay, but it was really difficult to get guests after coronavirus, so it kind of fizzled out a little bit. Hopefully that'll change. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is I had experience with maybe 6 or 7 podcast episodes on that work one, and what I really wanted to talk about though was hunting and conservation and fishing and outdoors and camping. And I mean everything. I like to talk about how to make campfires. I like to talk about why we love mule deer, and what the difference between mule deer and whitetail hunting looks like. And I love you guys know I love talking about elk hunting. I mean, come on, elk hunting is my thing, and so that's where my passion comes from with all of this, doing all this. I just love getting this information out there. I love learning. I love learning about these animals and the habitats they live in, and all that kind of stuff that kind of goes into the show and is kind of the essence of the show, and that's what I like doing. So I think that it's made a big impact because you guys keep tuning in. I know there's a lot of people out there that are sharing episodes, and they're sharing it with friends and family, and that's how it grows as well. That's actually the best way it grows. Your recommendation to other people goes a million miles compared to what I can do marketing wise from my end. So if you like the messaging on this show, I from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it if you share it. If you share this episode, text an episode to a friend or a family member that you think would apply to their interests. And if you do that, that's how the message spreads. Because our message is pretty simple here. We're here to inspire a genuine passion for hunting, fishing, and conservation. And that's to develop a strong coalition of American outdoorsmen to include Canada. I don't want to leave my Canadian friends out there, so I say that under the guise of North America. Willing to fight and protect our hunting rights, public land access, and our wildlife. That's it. That's our message. That's the foundational driver behind the Western Huntsman podcast. And so to those of you out there that have shared it and have supported the show, you've shared some of the content we share on social media, or you comment on it, or you like it, or you write a review for us, all that kind of stuff. I sincerely appreciate it. I wish that I could sit down with you and buy you a beer, and I know that there's a lot of miles between many of us. I'm way up here in North Idaho, and I've got listeners in Florida. I know there's a lot of miles between us, but I want you guys to know that I consider you guys, within my circle of friends for sure, even if we don't ever talk to each other personally, because we're hunters, we're outdoorsmen. We're the people that connect to nature. We're the people that connect our way of life and our hunting primal urge and tendencies to this discussion that is greater and broader than just what kind of deer we shot. You know what I mean? And so it's just cool. This whole thing is just cool. It's a lot better than what I thought it was going to be when I started this thing. And I remember I was so nervous when I started recording with people, and I'd get them on, and they'd either come into the studio, or I'd go meet with them, or we'd do it over the internet. And I was so nervous every time for the first couple of months. And now I'm not. I'm not nervous at all. So it's just like a comfort. Now I can get behind the microphone and talk, and you guys, I love when I put an episode out and I get feedback from you guys, sending me emails and all the other channels you can reach out to me by. I want to be, as I try to respond to every single one of them. That doesn't always happen, but I do try. I spend a lot of time just responding because that's the point of this show, is having these discussions, and whether it's through the microphone or, an email. So that's where we're at, guys. I've got this episode today is just kind of talking a lot about that. I'm solo. I'm running solo today. I don't do this very often. Usually I've got a guest on, but I did want to talk about, the show in the last year and bring up some things that just showing my appreciation to you guys and sharing information that's like inside information on the show too. I think that'll be kind of fun. So here we go with all that. The show, again, 12 months ago, we kicked that bad boy off down in a little cabin in just outside of Orofino, Idaho with Dirk. And I want to mention like the top 5 podcasts, the most downloaded podcasts, episodes that we've done, because it's super interesting, and it's not what I expected. So let's go through that. So and what I'll do is I'll go backwards. I'll go, the 5th most downloaded to the 4th most downloaded, and if maybe you guys will get a kick out of it. I don't know. It's super interesting for me to watch this kind of all play out. So the 5th most downloaded podcast was Marty Mariotto, the guy from the show Mountain Man, the Trapper. That was the 5th most downloaded episode. And Marty was so much fun to have on the show. He's such a good dude. I'd love to have him on again. He's currently off-grid trapping in Alaska right now. So that's pretty cool. Super interesting how that happened. Okay, so the 4th most downloaded episode was... Oh, where did I've got this all pulled up on my thing, and it takes a minute for it to load, because I've got, crappy internet. Okay, 4th most downloaded episode. The 2nd episode that I recorded with Troy Pottinger. And that one was called Troy Pottinger, A Legend in Public Land Whitetails, and I released that on September the 5th of this last year. So apparently you guys like Troy, and I do too. I can see why, because he's such a stud, and he's such a mountain whitetail buck killer, and I learned so much from having Troy on. What a stud, man. Okay, 3rd most downloaded episode is the one I did with Dr. Valerius Geist. And that one was called Dr. Valerius Geist on Wolves and Ecological Balance. Pretty cool. Super cool, actually, because if you don't know who Dr. Valerius Geist is, you gotta look him up, man. Get some of his books. He's got publications both online and books you could buy. Some of the books are like rare because they stopped printing them, and so they got really expensive. But the guy, he's forgotten more about wildlife management than I'll ever know. Just a brilliant man. One of the main authors on the North American model of wildlife conservation, and he was kind enough to join me on that episode, and we broke down the wolf issues and ecological balance and whitetails versus mule deer and all the stuff. So if you haven't heard that episode, you need to go back. I released that one on October 21st of 2020, and it was the 3rd most downloaded episode ever on the podcast. Okay, 2nd most downloaded episode on the podcast. I wish I had I need a drum roll thing, I don't have that little sound effect. Okay, second most downloaded episode on the podcast was the School of September episode with Dirk Durham, the Bugler. So Dirk, he's been on the show a few times, you guys know. And even one time he brought his buddy Doug Flutie, which actually the Doug Flutie episode is super interesting. It's in like the top 10 of downloads. So I think what happened is we put that one out there. And, it was a satire episode, and it was pretty funny. And I think people were like texting that one out to everybody, to their friends and stuff, because it got a lot of downloads, a lot more than just like the average. And it's hard to say that there is an average, because some of my initial episodes were actually pretty good, but it was before we grew into the larger audience that we have now. So that was really interesting. Okay, now I know you're on the edge of your seats, and this one may or may not be a surprise to you guys, but the number one most downloaded episode for the year 2020, or the first year of the Western Huntsman podcast, because technically we started in 2019, was the School of September episode with the elk nut Paul Medell. And I love it. I love it, man, because the top two episodes are School of September episodes. And I'll be honest with you, the rest of if I were to go through the top 10, basically the rest of them are all School of September, with the exception of that Doug Flutie episode that was in there. All the top episodes were pretty much all School of September ones, because we had Jason Phelps, we had Joe Giglia, we had Chris Rowe, and in fact for the fifth place position, it was almost tied. It was literally 3 downloads that separated 6th place to 5th place, and that one was with Chris Rowe of Rowe Hunting Resources for the School of September, and we had Michael Batiste, we had Corey Jacobson, and all those episodes are all pretty much within the top 10. I think we go past that, like the top 12 or whatever, but a lot of them were tied. And so I know, in fact, two of them were an exact tie. The one with Michael Batiste and Joe Giglia, those were tied. They had the exact same amount of downloads, which is pretty hard to do. So that's pretty cool. Super cool. So there you go. Apparently, you guys like elk hunting as much as I do. So guess what? We're going to talk a lot of elk hunting this coming year, and that's what I like talking about the most anyway. So. In terms of downloads, when you break it down per state, we get the most downloads in Idaho, and then right behind Idaho, I mean just right behind Idaho, is the state of Washington, and that is interesting to me because of, it's not interesting. It's not a surprise, I guess, because I'm right next door to Spokane, Washington. I know a lot of people over there, and a lot of those guys come over to Idaho and hunt, and so I talk a lot about the North Idaho area and all that kind of stuff. So it's no real big surprise. What is surprising is the amount of downloads we get out of like Seattle and Tacoma. Because you don't look at that area as like packed full of hunters, but it is. There's a ton of really kick-ass hunters over there, and they're into this stuff, and they're true blue Western hunters. And so when you really think about it, as surprising as it sounds, these big urban areas, there's a lot of great hunters that come out of those areas. So I appreciate you guys over there. Just a quick shout out. Next behind those two are Utah and Colorado. Those are the next 2 most downloaded states. Behind that are Oregon and California. And Wyoming basically is kind of all, those 3 are kind of meshed in there the same. The next group would be Montana, New Mexico, and Arizona. And I'm going to throw Texas in that mix. Texas has just as many downloads as all those. So that pretty much covers the entire western United States with the exception of Nevada. And we got to know what's going on in Nevada. We don't get a ton of downloads in Nevada. And but I know there's a lot of great hunters that come out of Nevada. So it's interesting seeing how that breaks down. Other notable states, we get a surprising amount of downloads in New York and Florida. We get a bunch out of Oklahoma, Illinois, and Michigan and Wisconsin. Those ones are all kind of in the top, top 10-ish states or so. that I'm talking about, because a lot of these I'm just kind of meshing together as one. Like, Utah and Colorado, they're neck and neck. So is Idaho and Washington and all those. So if we're placing all those. So anyway, just kind of interesting stuff. I thought you guys might be somewhat interested in hearing about that. So let's move from that, and I want to shift to announcing the winner of our trivia that if you guys have been listening throughout the whole fall, I've been throwing out these trivia questions. And so first of all, let's start with answering last week's trivia. Last week's trivia was how much antler growth does a mature mule deer buck experience during the summer months? And the answer to that, which everybody answered correctly, is a 1/4 inch. So and why that's crazy to me, because if you think about a 1/4 inch, right? We've all probably mowed our lawn at some point. And a 1/4 inch is a pretty good amount of growth that you'd see, but you never see that in a 24-hour span. Okay, maybe I take that back. Maybe in early May, you might see a 1/4 inch of growth on your grass. But think of an antler and the mass and the hard bone mass that you see on these animals by the time they've hardened up. Well, earlier in the year, those things are growing like crazy, man, and before they're super hard, and they've got the velvet on them. And so anyways, the point being, if you kind of sit down and imagine in a 24-hour span that antler growing a 1/4 inch, to me, and maybe it's just me, but to me, that's nuts. That's a lot of growth. My buddy Mike Hers, he wrote in with the answer, and he also added in that a moose grows 1 pound of antler growth, or sees 1 pound of antler growth in a 24-hour span. That's nuts. A pound of antler in a 24-hour span. Think of that. That's crazy, right? And so, anyways, thanks for everybody who wrote in on that for the trivia. So I am going to keep the trivia questions going, by the way. Excuse me. I'm gonna keep those going because you guys like them as much as I do, because I get a ton of responses on those, more so than a lot of times I'll ask a question and I'll get a bunch of emails in response to the question that I ask, and other times I'll ask a question and it's like crickets. I hear nothing. And so on the trivia questions, I get a ton of responses. So what I did is I took all those responses and I put them onto this spreadsheet that mixes it all up and draws a name for me. This little program I got. It's pretty cool. And I want to announce the winner. The winner for the last quarter, the fall of 2020 trivia question competition or whatever, contest, is Johnny Bergeson. So Johnny Bergeson, if you're listening to this, I believe you're in Wyoming. You need to write me. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a T-shirt, a sticker, and a coffee cup. And it's all Western Huntsman swag. And so I'm going to send that little package to you, but I need your address. So write into me, Johnny Bergeson in Wyoming, Jim at thewesternhuntsman.com to claim the prize. And I'm going to give you until next week's episode to do that. And if I don't hear from you within that time, I'm going to draw another name. But I'm pretty sure we're going to hear from you. So Johnny, nice job. It wasn't based on right or wrong answers. It was totally random. We just draw a name. And I'm going to continue this on. So the next round is going to kind of run from January through March, through the end of March, and I'll come up with and not every episode has a trivia question, but we're going to do what we can to get those in there. So, Johnny Bergeson, the only reason I know you're in Wyoming is because your email address is pretty telling. And so, yeah, shoot me an email, man. You're the winner, brother. All right, and so let's move on to some other topics, man. I wanted to kind of cover a few things about the Western Huntsman and the Western Huntsman podcast, where we're going, and invite people that want to I know there's a lot of you out there that listen in that are also writers, and I know that because I'm a writer. And I like to write articles. I hardly have any time to freaking write articles anymore, but I really do enjoy writing. And I think it's a great way to communicate. And I'm looking for people that have a knack for writing that want to write a few articles for the Western Huntsman, and I can put it up on the website and get it out there. Any kind of hunting topic. So if you're interested in that, I'll just be upfront and honest with you. This show does not generate any actual revenue, and so I can't pay you. But there will be other things and other incentives, and hopefully one day that might change. I might be able to pay you. I don't know. You never know. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. If you're a writer and you want to send in an article that I could publish on the website with your name on it and all that kind of stuff, I kind of cap it at about 3,000 words, include some pictures, including a photo of you, so I could put that in there so people know who what they're reading and who it's from and all that kind of stuff. Feel free to send that over to me. That's kind of part of the Western Huntsman is getting more than just my opinion. I like that kind of stuff because I don't want this to just the Western Huntsman is not like a nickname for me, right? I am not the Western Huntsman. I'm Jim with the Western Huntsman. The Western Huntsman is I want it to be a collaborative thing. It's a collection of voices and people that have opinions and have perspectives that I think other hunters want to hear from. And so that's what it is. My wife and some of our family, they joke around and they're like, "Oh, are you the Western Huntsman?" Or my wife will be like, "Would you mind if the Western Huntsman actually took the trash out this week?" So, that kind of stuff, it's super funny to kid around with that. But that's not what this is. The Western Huntsman is a brand. It is just a brand. And I am not some crazy good hunter that deserves some cool nickname or anything like that. I'm just an average hunter. And sometimes I make it happen, and most of the time I fail miserably. And I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that. So that's I think an important point. And I've got a couple of guest writers that have written in articles. I still need it. Well, I put a couple of Dale Vallade's articles out. He's a great writer out of Oregon. And he kind of specializes in writing about firearms, which is great because I don't know much about. He could tell you everything there is about every caliber out there. I'm not one of those kind of guys. I don't really pay attention to a lot of that. I'm of more of the opinion that I have a couple of rifles that I really like, and when I'm rifle hunting, I'm proficient enough with them, and so that's all I care about. And to me, it's all about practicing. But so that one's out there on the website. Sorry, I got distracted. My phone started ringing there. Anyway, that one's out there on the article, and I've got another one in the queue from Dale that I'm going to release. I also have one from Andrew Tucker, who is my cousin, actually. He wrote in, and I'm going to get that one out there on the website as well. And I'd love to hear from you guys, man. If you guys have an article, I mean, listen, I'm just the podcast host here. I'm just kind of the guy that facilitates the platform of the Western Huntsman. We're a collective of hunters here, and if you guys have something that's it'd be nice to hear from somebody other than me every once in a while on these articles, because I'm so dumb I got to study for a urine test. So it'd be nice to get some smart people actually writing articles that people want to read, and we can work something out. So shoot me an email, jim@thewesternhuntsman.com. And we'll see if we can get you out on the website and published under the guise of a guest writer for the Western Huntsman platform. And topics will include or can include, hunting stories to hunting tips to hunting strategies to conservation, stories about, just great stories. I love a really good story. I think that's the way to go. And this is a brand, and I have a thing for building brands. That's what I've done for my day job for a long time in the construction industry. I like to build brands, and I get excited about that. And I'm good at taking companies from like a certain level to a certain level that maxes out. And then they need somebody that's got a different set of skills to take it from that level that I got it to another level, right? And that's kind of along the lines of what I've done in my career. And so I really like building brands, and I have a lot of friends that own companies out there, and a lot of them do a really good job. In fact, I'll mention one that in terms of building a brand, let's talk about a butcher guy I know that started a company that the brand and the name of the company itself tells you exactly what it does. That is good branding, and that is Get Your Meat LLC. Because what's our biggest concern when we take a deer or an elk to the butcher? My biggest concern is always, am I getting my meat back? Well, he's not in my area, but my buddy Andy started a company called Get Your Meat LLC down in the Boise area, and he's a wild game butcher. He does a fantastic job, and his guarantee is you're going to get your meat back. You're not going to get some other dude's elk back that you don't have, you have no idea whether or not he took care of that in the field or she. And where Andy, you take that meat into Andy. I just kind of, it's a good way to throw a shout out to Andy. I am throwing him a shout out shamelessly. If I was in the Boise area, I'd take my meat to Get Your Meat LLC. Reach out to him if you got any needs, because it's a great company, and that's how you brand a company. And the brand that I'm trying to develop here at the Western Huntsman is we are Western hunters that are united. We don't necessarily agree on everything, but we are united, and we're sharing these messages. And I think that is good stuff that we really need to focus on, and all kind of come together. And that's really the philosophy behind the Western Huntsman. Together, high tides raise all ships. Right? Rising tide raises all ships. And that's kind of what some of the foundational principles here are. And the one thing that I always want people to be able to rely on with the brand of the Western Huntsman is it's a name that you could trust. And it's a durable, solid, trustworthy brand. This is not, it's not like this is some kind of effort to be a journalist, right? I don't report news. This isn't CNN, because I'll be honest with you guys. And 2020 has really kind of put a lot of this into perspective. But I was suspicious of this long before 2020. I don't trust the news media. I don't trust any of them. And I know that there's some that are great biased one way, that are great biased the other way, and people really love and enjoy those networks and stuff like that. But for me personally, I don't trust them. Sometimes I don't know who to trust anymore with a lot of that stuff, because and I don't trust these big tech companies like Facebook and all this stuff. It's just man, it's left a bad taste in my mouth, especially lately. It's so like, makes me feel so dirty. You know what I mean? The way that these people that are supposed to be just reporting the news have put these twists, and I don't care if it's right or left. I really don't care if it's right or left. The point is it is right or left, and it's not supposed to be. And that's why I don't trust them. And this started years ago. And I'll tell you this little story about where it started. I think you guys will like this story, because it really puts into perspective where this attitude is kind of came out of. Many of you know I was in Iraq. And when I was in Iraq, it was during the initial invasion from Kuwait and the big drive to Baghdad, right? I was a 0311 front lines fire team leader in the Marine Corps Infantry. And I was a second fire team leader of 1st Squad of 1st Platoon, Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines. And we called it Easy Company because it's actually Echo Company, but back in World War II, the Marines in this particular unit that landed on the Battle of Tarawa, which was a hellacious freaking battle. I met the dude that had my exact job. I think I explained that in one of the episodes. Back then, it wasn't Echo Company, it was Easy Company. So after we met the Marines that held our same billet positions during World War II, we changed as a company. We kind of like voted on it and changed it officially to Easy Company. So Easy 2-2, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines in the 2nd Marine Division. And in Iraq, I was part of Task Force Tarawa. And that was just kind of the name of our unit that was pushing in to Iraq. And the way that invasion went, it was long before, in the Iraq War, it was long before the bases were established in Iraq. We didn't have any bases. We didn't have any safe zones. We didn't have, airports and and just these areas that got established later on in the war because troops were there for so freaking long. They had to, obviously. We basically were moving from Kuwait to Baghdad. The objective was to take Baghdad and take the bad guys in all along the way. That big initial drive, that initial invasion. We were one of the first units to cross into Iraq when the war started. And so this is way back in 2003. Seems like yesterday, but it was a long time ago. And so the Marine Corps, our task forces in the Marine Corps kind of were focused on the right side, and the Army had units focused on the left side of Iraq if you're looking at it on a map. And so we were kind of like part of that tip of the spear kind of thing going up on the right side of Iraq. It was real interesting. Anyways, one of the most dangerous things that you would do in Iraq was these vehicle checkpoints. And that's where we would set up a roadblock, and we would have to inspect all these vehicles that were coming through, right? And so we're doing that. My fire team's doing that. Crazy stuff happened on these checkpoints. It was something I'll never forget. But we're doing that, and this car full of these kind of I don't know if it was a family or what, but there was a dude driving. And this older lady gets out, and we had an interpreter with us, and she was kind of expressing in her language that they were thirsty. They'd been on the road for a long time. They had no water, and so we had water jugs right there. So we took these. They had these water bottles, and I'm filling them up. And a checkpoint is a very dangerous place. Well, before I go there, let me back up by stating that along with us, as we were making this big drive to Baghdad, we had, if you remember the term embedded reporters, we had these embedded reporters with us. And there were these civilian journalists that would kind of follow behind us in a 5-ton truck. The 5-ton, the typical troop transport kind of trucks that you see sometimes in the movies. And we dubbed that truck the clown cart, and we even made a sign for it and attached to the front, and the journalists were all pissed about that. and we didn't care. But anyway, so the clown cart pulls up kind of where the checkpoint we had set up was, and this reporter gets out, real kind of, hipster-looking dude, and he gets out, and I'm filling up this lady's water bottle, and I looked over at him, and he's snapping pictures of this, like I'm some big-time humanitarian, I think is what the spin he wanted to take on this was, or whatever. I'm pouring the water, and I kind of look over at him, and I told him, hey, you're way too close, man. I need you to back up like 50 yards. Just you need to get away from this checkpoint. Again, these are dangerous places. Car bombs were going off. Firefights were breaking out at these checkpoints all over the place, and they were just a crazy situation to be in. And so I was telling him, you need to back up. And he's like, let me just get a couple of pictures. And I'm like, no, dude, you need to go way the fuck back there because CNN can wait on their pictures. Pardon my French, by the way. And he got this really annoyed look on his face because I said CNN can wait, and looked at me and he said, I'm with the Associated Press. Okay. All right. I'm making fun of him too hard. He said, I'm with the Associated Press. And a real just, one of those snotty kind of responses. And I gave him a few choice words and convinced him that he needed to get back in that truck and they needed to back up and go back away from the checkpoint. So that happened. Like 2 nights later, what part of our job was is we would go in and so-called liberate these towns, these villages and these towns and whatever. We'd come and occupy them, and then we'd push outside the city limits of whatever town we were in, and kind of secure them as we moved. And all the American or coalition forces were kind of catching up, right? So we were doing that. Now, here's something that I don't want anybody to take take the wrong way or out of context, but because I know there's a lot of opinions on this and a lot of different variations as to the justification of going into the Iraq War, and I have some as well. But at the time, my experience was as we liberated village and town after village and town, the Iraqi people were extremely thankful and very, very happy that we were there. They hated Saddam Hussein, right? They were people that have been living under tyranny for a long time, where if they didn't support the leader of Iraq and their leader, this godlike figure that Saddam Hussein made himself into, that they could face the repercussions of death even. It was a very bad situation for these people. So irregardless of how you feel about the justification of the Iraq War, one thing that I took out of it is I felt good about the fact that these people were no longer going to live under a tyrannical ruler like Saddam Hussein. Does that justify years and years and blah, blah, blah of occupation and all that kind of stuff? I don't know, guys. It's way above my pay grade. But I am just telling you from my experience there, they were very appreciative. And we had multiple Iraqi military folks that would surrender to us that expressed that they had no interest in fighting us. They wanted Saddam gone as bad as we did. And the only reason they were fighting is because while they were still in communication with the regime, had they surrendered, Saddam would have killed their families. So they kept fighting. Okay, so we've established that. So needless to say, once we would liberate a village, the Iraqis would celebrate at night. And one of the ways that they celebrate in the Middle East is they take their rifles, their weapons that they have, and they and only a very select few would have them, right? This isn't like, it's not like America, or more specifically Idaho or Wyoming or Montana or Utah, Colorado, all the western states, where a bunch of us have guns. This isn't the South. This is Iraq. So not a lot of civilian citizens of the country of Iraq had weapons, but some of them did. And when we would liberate a town, they would, they'd celebrate in the street that night with like fireworks, and they'd shoot their guns in the air. And I remember we were sitting there in our fighting holes. We dug these, quintessential fighting foxholes, the kind that you dig in and you make a little parapet for your rifle to set over, and a sleeping area, all this stuff. And there were 2-man fighting positions, and that's what we did. So we'd push out of town and dig in for the night. So we're sitting there and we're eating our MREs, and kind of just BSing back and forth. That's what Marines do. Making jokes and smoking cigarettes and all the things that you do. That 90% of the time you spend in a war is just sitting there. So this same reporter, this douche canoe that I had to basically threaten with his safety, not from the dangers of war, but from myself if he didn't get away from my checkpoint. He was kind of within our lines there, as the town behind us was doing celebratory fire. So we were facing the opposite direction. The town was behind us. But you could hear all this ruckus going on in town, right? And they're shooting their guns in the air. There's fireworks going off. There's cheering. There's banging pots and pans. You'd have thought it was like New Year's Eve. And all this ruckus was going on. And he's back there set up, reporting that the Marines are engaged in this giant firefight. And he's being so dramatic about it. And he's like kind of acting like he's ducking from gunfire. And he's yelling into his microphone as he's reporting that this big battle's going on. And he didn't know we could hear him, because we're just sitting there like, trading MREs for cigarettes and M&Ms, and we're about ready to go to sleep other than the fire watch for the night. And he's back there reporting it like it's this, Normandy beach invasion or something, like there's this big battle going on, and he wanted to make it sound like he was in the midst of it. So at the time, I'm like 22 years old in Iraq. I believe I was 22. And I'd been in the Marines a long time. Well, a little something interesting. The week I was supposed to get out of my 4-year enlistment in the Marine Corps is the same week that the Iraq War started. So obviously I was stop-lossed. They didn't let us get out. They extended our enlistment service, and there I was in Iraq. So getting back to that, I remember thinking back then, and this is back before I had, strong political opinions or one thing or another in terms of that. I didn't really pay attention much. I'd voted in one presidential election, and I didn't know why I was voting for the guy, but I did. And that's just kind of how, I was young. And this was back before all the young people were like political activists like they are now. And a lot of these folks nowadays, they have no reason or they shouldn't be political activists when you're a teenager. Like, you got bigger things to think about and worry about. I think it's robbing them of their childhood. And so this was back in those days when we weren't robbed of our childhood, and we weren't filled with a bunch of just crazy propagandists, left or right wing, just shit in our heads to make us these young activists. We were just normal. We were kids, and so I didn't have any political leanings one way or the other. I didn't know that the media lied like they do until then. And that is where my opinion shifted, where this guy made this phony story about this great battle that we were in. And prior to this, most of the towns we liberated, we didn't even have to shoot our rifles. The enemy left. They knew the Marines were coming, they left. Same with the Army guys on the other side of the country. The Army was coming, they left. They didn't want to fight. So I don't think a shot had been fired all day until the local civilian population of the Iraqis started celebrating with a celebratory fire. And it just rubbed me the wrong way. There was something dirty about it, the way he was lying about this big battle going on. It's a big firefight. The Marines are heavily engaged and blah, blah, blah. And it was a lie. And it soured me to the concept of journalism. And ever since then, because I started paying attention after that, ever since then, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And I guess that is a long way of saying that here at the Western Huntsman, what you hear from me, and not that I'm reporting news again, but when I do have something to talk about, it's from my heart, and it's what I know to be true. I have either verified it, or I am, if I'm not 100% true or sure about its truth, I will tell you that I'm not 100% sure that this is right, but here's what I think. And I think that that's an important distinction. I'm not here to change anybody's opinions, even though I have opinions and I talk about them and I give you reasons why I feel one way or the other. I'm not here to change anybody's opinion. I'm not here to lament some cause, whether it's a dying cause or a growing cause or whatever truth of action or whatever we're talking about. My goal with this is just to present how I feel about it, or my guest how they feel about it. Present you with what facts we have, and talk about what as hunters we need to do about it, because this is such important stuff. It's such important stuff. This is what we are. And I want you guys to just know that I will definitely make mistakes, because I have. I've been doing this a year now, and yeah, I've made mistakes as to what I said, and I regretted, saying this or that at one point. That's going to continue. I mean, shit, I'm just a dude that likes to hunt and talk about it on a show. So that's going to continue. But I do want you guys to know that whether you agree with my opinions or my beliefs, one way or the other, or you don't agree with them, I just want you to know that it actually does come from my heart, and I truly and firmly believe it, and I know that I know it to be factual if I'm presenting it as a fact. I'm not trying to sway you or convince you or pull the wool over anybody's eyes. And so I think that you guys will appreciate that, because I know I appreciate that from other podcasts that I listen to, because there's some of them that are just they're just BS, and I just want to be totally honest with you guys, and I think that's important. Anyway, that was a long road to take to get to that destination, wasn't it? But I think we covered it pretty good, so I appreciate that. I like telling stories sometimes on the show, and I got a couple of good ones for you guys, because it's been pretty interesting. So I started the show, right, and as we talk about this whole last year and how the show has gone, and just some awesome guests we've had, I'd start naming them, but what would happen is we've had 50 some odd guests on the show, and I'd forget somebody, and so I don't want to do that. But I've had some great guests, and all of them, and they've all become friends, and they've all, just we have a connection. After you've been on the show, we like have this connection, right? And I really like that. But you guys know I was talking about some of the distance between us, and that is true for not only you listeners, but it's also true for some of the guests I get. I've had guests in Alaska, I've had guests in the Midwest, I've had guests in the South or back east or other Western states. And so while I'm doing this show, it's lots of things happen. I'm sitting here in the studio. When I'm recording, I've either got coffee, or I'll just fess up and tell you guys, sometimes I have a beer, or I have like a whiskey, and it's fun, and it gets I've just always got something going on. Well, the problem with that, ladies and gentlemen, is I have one of the world's smallest bladders you will ever see in your life. And it's like everybody makes fun of when they're on a road trip with their wife because their wife constantly has to stop to go pee or whatever. Now, that's me too. My wife does have a small bladder, but we're on the same schedule. It takes us like an 8-hour drive will take us 10 because her and I, we have to stop all the time. I don't know what to do, especially when I get drinking beer. It just flows right through me. But anyway, so the remedy to that when we're recording like a 2-hour podcast is I have water bottles. Okay, just like when you're sitting in a deer stand or something like that. It's the same kind of situation when I'm sitting in the studio. The most disastrous thing that ever happened, and I thought it was going to ruin everything. So I used one of those water bottles to empty the bladder, right? I know, it's kind of gross, but I did. And I set it on the desk, and I'm like, man, what am I going to do with this? It was like one of the first times I did this. Like, what am I going to do with this? The guest is talking, I'm talking, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put this bottle. And I turn around behind me. Behind me, if you've ever seen some of the pictures of us recording, I've got a big window behind me, and I thought, man, I could just turn around and kind of dump it out and mute my microphone while I'm doing that out the window. So it just goes outside, right? And it'll be fine. And so that was my thought. So I turned back around to grab it, and instead of grabbing it, I knocked the damn thing all over my laptop. And I had the kind of guest on that I didn't want to be like, okay, dude, hold on. I just spilled, pee all over my laptop from my water bottle that I just peed in while you were talking. And so I'm like freaking out. I have this T-shirt that I cover some of the equipment with, and I grab that and I'm like dabbing it, and I'm picking up the computer and I'm trying to drain it off, and I'm like just trying to get it off the desk so it doesn't ruin microphones and soundboards and laptops. And I have a mouse sitting here and wires going everywhere, right? I mean, it's like a legitimate studio in here. And I'll bet you I don't know. Maybe I'm not the first podcaster to ever do that, but I'll bet you I'm one of the first. And I don't, it's kind of an embarrassing story, but I thought you guys might get a kick out of that. The crazy thing is this is like $1,000 computer I record all this on. Didn't hurt it at all. I mean, it was all over the keyboard and everything. It didn't hurt it at all, and it didn't affect the audio. We went on for another 45 minutes recording that show after that had happened, and I'm just like freaking out the whole time, thinking that the computer's going to crash at any second, or something's going to blow up, or it's just going to be a disaster. But no, it turned out fine. Nobody ever noticed, and it was a few months ago, and I just thought that some of that behind the scenes stuff, I always like to hear that from other shows, whether it's like, a TV thing or another podcast or whatever, some of this behind the scenes stuff. Another time, this dude I had this dude on, and we're recording. It's a remote interview again. And he was a big talker, which is always good for a podcast host, because it's nice when, you get different personalities. And some people, they talk a lot, and it's really good. And you don't have to say much. You just kind of guide the conversation, and it goes. And those are always nice versus trying to pull information out of somebody that's not a big talker. And it's all that is just a personality difference. Like if I got my wife on, it would be like an hour of me asking her questions, and they would be like yes or no answers, because she's like way shy, and she's not like a big talker unless it's just me and her. But if she knows other people are listening, she's like she's super quiet. And versus me, I just talk everybody's ear off. That's kind of the dynamic I'm talking about. But I'm sitting there recording with this guy, and he's a big talker, and I'm like, what the hell is that smell, man? And it just kept hitting me like a wall. This crazy, nasty, foul, ungodly smell. And finally, like I went through that for like a half an hour during this conversation, and it just kept coming and hitting me, and boom. And it would throw me off. Like it would mess up the conversation because it was pretty sure my nose hair was melting as I was trying to talk. It was so bad. The smell was so bad. Then I realized I had my little buddy in here, Trevor the studio dog. And Trevor is a 10-year-old golden retriever. And he's a bit overweight because I don't take him hunting anymore. It hurts the poor dog, so I don't like to. He wants to go. I know he wants to go hunting. He was a great bird dog when he was younger. I'm telling you, right? He was a great bird dog. We had a ball chasing upland game, and but anyway, I know he's got a little arthritis going on, and so he just kind of lays around. And he hangs out with me in the studio. In fact, he's in here right now. But for some reason that day he had freaking gas, and it was terrible. And I know what it was. He had gotten into this dead animal that because where we live, we're in the woods, so we'll get dead deer and turkeys and all sorts of stuff just kind of show up on the property. And Trevor, he always finds them. So he must have been munching on that. And it was a dead doe that I don't know if she just didn't make it through the winter or what, but I didn't know she was out there. And he gets a hold of that and chews on that all the way down to the bone marrow and everything else, but he's in the studio while I'm trying to record, and it was an important conversation, and he's just ripping ass like crazy. And I mean, it stunk, man. You ever smell just those foul dog odors? I couldn't get over it. So the dude was a big enough talker that I was able to mute my microphone, jump out of my chair, run over to the door of the studio, let him out out of the main part of my shop, because you got to go through two doors when you're in the studio to get outside. I had to run way down there, open the door, let him out. I didn't let him out. I kicked him out. I'm like, dude, you are not staying. You're killing me. Kicked him out and came running back, and the guy was still talking. I'm not going to say which guest it was because they don't know that this happened. But I came running back here, put my headphones back on, and he's still just talking my ear off. I loved it. It was perfect. It's kind of stuff I get a big kick out of, and thought you guys might too. So anyway, let's wrap this up by just saying that here we are, guys, a year into this. We've done some cool stuff. We've done some really great giveaways. Had a cool youth hunting contest, youth essay hunting essay contest. I think that turned out really well. I have some ideas for that because I want to go forward with another. Something along those lines in the future. We had a really good response for that with that, so I figured it might be kind of cool. So just as we wrap this down, wind this down, guys, it's been 1 year, almost 60 episodes when you include the school of September, because those don't count as an actual episode number except for one because I was out of episodes that week. See, there's another little inside secret. And as we wrap this up, guys, it's been a heck of a ride. It's been a hell of a ride. I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed getting to know many of you. Some of the conversations we've had, whether it's on Facebook Messenger or direct message on Instagram or email, and sometimes it's been phone calls, and just getting to know you guys, making new friends, learning a lot about different people and their perspective about hunting and conservation and fishing. Holy cow. I had a heck of a fishing episode, or not episode, conversation with a guy. I'm releasing an episode, which you guys don't want to miss that one next week. That was a cool episode. I got to go to his house and record this, and he's a legitimate outdoorsman. So you guys don't miss that one next week. But this has just been great. This has just been great for me. I've learned a lot about hunting. I've learned a lot about myself and some of the things I've been messing up in terms of my hunting efforts. And I feel like many of you have written in to me and told me that, maybe it was the school of September, that changed your perspective on this and that, and because of that you were successful this year, or you actually ended up calling in bowls this year because of the school of September series, or it was the turkey episode with Chris Rowe or Scott Ellis, where we talked nothing but turkeys, and so a lot of you got turkeys because of it, and that makes me tick. That really makes me tick. That fires me up like you guys wouldn't believe. So don't stop sending me that kind of stuff. I love hearing it. And thank you to everybody who's jumped on the website and bought the T-shirts and the mugs and all that kind of stuff, because that really does help. In fact, if you guys want a cool T-shirt or something and want to jump on there, I'll tell you what I'm doing is I'm saving that money up so that I can actually trademark the brand of the Western Huntsman. Right now it's protected through like this copyright, but I want to take it to the next level that would really hold up and trademark that. But it's pretty expensive, so I need you guys to buy a T-shirt or something, or a sticker. I don't care what it is. But for those of you that already have, I appreciate that. That helps offset some of the costs of this. And I appreciate you guys that have shared the episode. I appreciate you guys that have written reviews on Apple or wherever you can. I know a lot of the podcast hosting sites don't allow you to write one of those, but I just, again, I don't know how else to say it, guys. I just appreciate it. I love you guys. I love hunting. I love the outdoors. I love conservation. I like passion, and I feel like my audience has a lot of passion, and that's been a super interesting thing that I've noticed is, before I did this, I kind of thought, I always knew there was a lot of passionate hunters out there. I just didn't know how many. Like that, when you guys download a show that I put out every week, that tells me you are freaking passionate about hunting. It's February, and I'm still getting a bunch of downloads. Or it's there's no hunting season going on, but I'm still getting a bunch of downloads. That is commitment to the hunting world. And I thought that I knew there was a bunch out there, but what I've realized with this show is there is a lot of you out there that are a lot like me, where we think about hunting all the time. We think about it. We think about how we can be better, how we can improve our season and our odds, or we think about the gear, and which, by the way, in terms of gear, it's been interesting I've been using this initial ascent pack, because I had an elk hunt a couple weeks ago, and I got close. Man, I spotted these elk down from the road. They're about 3/4 of a mile up this drainage. I had to put the snowshoes on, and I worked my way up there, and they were feeding towards me, and there was like a spike. And I think there was a raghorn, but I only caught like a quick glimpse of that. They were kind of coming in and out of some timber, and I closed the distance as much as I could, but I was out of timber, so I needed them to feed towards me, and that's kind of what they were doing. They were working their way, and I'm like, oh, this spot sucks. I need to adjust by like 10 feet. And when I did that, I hit some crunchy snow. They didn't see me, but they heard something, and so they just kind of shifted direction and moved the other way, and I had no way to pursue them or get around them. And then the next day, the next time, I hunted for about 6 days straight, and the next encounter was also interesting. I had just kind of walked up into this area that I've hunted in September and knew there were elk up there, and there still are. Even with all the snow, they were kind of hanging up there. It's pretty far back. Took me forever because of the snow. But the point being, I almost got a bull on that day as well. And interestingly, he was moving, and I cow called, and he actually stopped, and he thought about coming towards me. And so it answers a lot. I've seen a lot of questions. Do calls work in like late season? I don't know. Because he did stop and he analyzed, and he did that. You could read their body language, and he almost turned. And this is an archery hunt, so I had to get super close. Otherwise, if it was a rifle hunt, that would have been over that first day. But this was an archery hunt, and he kind of give me this like shift in his body that maybe he was going to come check it out, and then he just changed his mind and kind of wandered off in the other direction. And I tried to cow call again. So the jury is still out, in my opinion, as to whether or not you can call him in that late season. I don't think for the most part you're going to be super successful doing that, but you never know. You get a curious bull, So that was fun. The point to that is I got to carry this initial ascent pack that these guys sent that is a pack that is kind of changing hands every month to a different hunter. It's called the Travel or the Brotherhood of the Traveling Pack. Man, these packs are legitimate, guys. These are American made, Idaho made. These packs, and I'm not saying this because they're not a show sponsor or anything like that, but they make these excellent packs. They're super functional. Everything about them just makes sense, and the way they fit, the weight distribution is unlike anything else I've had with any other pack. And I haven't tried all the packs out there, so I'm not saying I'm comparing them to every pack out there. If you've got a favorite pack that you like, that's awesome. What I am saying is I've tried enough packs to know that my next gear investment is an initial ascent. They sent me the 4K. I'm probably going to go with the 6 just because I've got some backcountry hunts coming up, and I want that extra space. And it's just an excellent pack, and I loaded it down a little bit more than I needed to, but it was winter and I wanted to be prepared. Great pack, guys. As with any of the gear, with our show sponsors, I want to thank them too. SKRE Gear and Hoffman Boots and Phelps Game Calls. You guys have all sponsored the show this year. I want to thank Tacticam. They're a good partner for the show. If you guys don't have a Tacticam, you should check out Tacticam if you like to film your hunts. It's a great POV type kind of camera, super easy to use, very functional. Just go to tacticam.com and check that out. Let them know I sent you though, because they're not a formal sponsor of the show yet, but they might be. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. But in terms of SKRE, the SKRE gear that I use, I don't just tell you guys I like SKRE because they have sponsored the show. I promise you, I legitimately think that you're getting the most bang for your buck when you buy the SKRE gear. It's very high quality gear and effective camo patterns, great technical apparel that you're not going to have to take out a second mortgage to get. The stuff, it's pricey, but it's not that pricey, right? It's just really good gear. And I have tried enough of the name brands out there to know that I do stand behind this SKRE gear. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely check them out and use promo code The Western Huntsman. It'll save you 15%. And then last is my pal Jim Hoffman and Hoffman Boots. This Idaho boot maker company, Hoffman Boots has always been like this little secret for North Idaho and the linemen, the guys that work on those power lines and everything else, because they make lineman boots. But in terms of hunters, it's always been like this little North Idaho secret that you can get these Hoffman boots. Like SKRE, these boots are a little bit less than what you'll find with a lot of the top name brands, but that does not take away from the quality of these boots. These things are freaking tough boots, and I've been using them for years, and I believe in them with everything I got. So Hoffman Boots, we got a promo code there too. It's Huntsman15. Huntsman is all cap locks. Cap locks. I can't pronounce it. Anyway, I've been talking too long, guys. Shit. Anyway. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Once again, this is our 1-year anniversary. I'm super happy. With how this year has gone. It has blown out all the goals and objectives that I set for this show. When I started the show, I did kind of operate it like it was, in terms of goals and objectives, kind of like from a business format. And I set goals to hit and milestones to achieve. Guys, we blew all those out by like freaking June. It was ridiculous. It's crazy. Thank you so much for tuning in. From the bottom of my heart, I really mean that. Thank you sincerely. Let me know if you have any ideas for the show coming into the new year. I do. I'm ready to work on some of these new ideas that we're gonna bust out in 2021. And but if you have a cool idea you want to share, Jim at thewesternhuntsman.com. That's my email address. Love to hear from you guys. Have a great week, guys, and sincerely thank you so much for tuning in and supporting this show. It means the world to me. I just can't thank you enough. And from my family to yours, and from the Western Huntsman to you, Merry Christmas. You made it all the way to the end. thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.